And welcome to the Dreary Midnight Podcast. My name is Lisa. My pronouns are she, they.
My name is Celeste. My pronouns are she, her.
And welcome back. This is a Celeste-led episode tonight. So what are we talking about?
Today, we'd referenced the Hat Man a lot.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to do some research on that. And then I remembered that shadow people exist. So, you know, shadow person, the perception of a patch of shadow of living species, a humanoid figure, sometimes interpreted as the presence of a spirit or other entity, and believed to be evil in nature.
Oh, wow.
So, tonight,
on the
on the Midnight Podcast,
we're discussing the shadow people.
Yeah.
Let's get into it. Intro music.
Intro music. I should just add a new level to that riff every single time.
Yeah. Also, if you hear barking in the background, we don't know if it's a shadow person or if a gnat farting in Kentucky. But we're recording at Celeste's place today, and so Clem perceives all, including all of the gnats. So if you hear barking, that's what it is.
Maybe that's why she barks so much. It's just so many shadow people flooding the house, and I can't even see it.
Being aware of too many things in the universe. All right. All right. So, shadow people. So we got the definition.
Yeah.
And then
a loose definition.
Loose definition. Is there more than one definition?
So shadow people, they're also known as shadow figures or black mass. Okay. So if you're ever reading something and it's like a black mass, that's basically the same thing. It's not really necessarily multiple definitions. It's more like different descriptions. Okay. So from what we've perceived, from what people have gathered, shadow people, they're nocturnal, so you usually see them at night. They have like a human form. They're prone to like flickering on walls and ceilings and kind of flickering in and out. And they're not as see-through as like a ghost. They're more solid.
Okay.
But they can float across a room or, you know, appear and disappear. So because of the usually when people see them, it's like a dread. They're assumed to be evil in nature. So I'm going to start off by saying that a number of religions and belief systems describe shadow entities. So a couple examples. In Islam, there's the jinn, or as the Western world might know them, genies.
So you mean they're not friendly animated figures granting 3 wishes?
They're not voiced by Robin Williams? No, although I do like that interpretation. Same. Jinn are, I think, similar to fairies, where they're more like tricksters.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
We could probably honestly do a whole episode on genies.
Yeah.
Because I think that's a really interesting topic. But according to the Quran, they're made of smokeless and scorching fire. They have the ability to move through objects and take on the characteristics of angels and demons. And they can take on multiple forms, like that of snake, scorpion, lizard, human. But jinn are generally invisible and are composed of thin and subtle bodies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that's one definition, or that's one region that mentions shadow people. Another is Native American folklore. So, or I guess
which tribe?
It's not even. It's the Choctaw tribe.
Okay.
So it's Native American lore. I was researching this at night.
Oh, so possibly the worst time to see that.
It was the worst. I literally finished writing this one section that I'm about to tell you.
Yeah.
And then I go, James, we have to take the dog on a walk right now, because if I have to go by myself later, or if I keep doing this more research, if I keep doing more research, I'm just gonna not go out today.
Yep.
So there's a reason we record this during the day.
Yeah.
So it's a creature known as, sorry if I get this pronounced this wrong, Nalusa Chito or Impa Shulup. The Impa Shulup was a soul eater.
Ew.
Yeah. Described as a great black being.
Huh.
If individuals allowed evil thoughts or depression to enter their minds, this creature would creep inside of them and eat their souls.
Well, shit.
Yeah. Many people of the Choctaw Nation don't even say its name in fear of summoning the spirit, which is why I only said it
Are we gonna get
twice.
haunted?
I hope not.
Good grief.
And maybe that's why it has 2 names.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Oh, like one is the true name and one is the, like, let's talk around this. Like how people on YouTube have to say they unalived themselves now or whatever.
Oh my, yeah, because otherwise they'll get flagged.
Yeah.
And it'll be taken down. Yeah. What's it called? I'm going to look up, because I think I remember, but I don't want to get my facts wrong. I'm going to look up where the Choctaw tribe is, and hopefully it's far away from here.
I mean, I won't say the actual name of flesh pedestrians for the similar reason. Yeah. So,
aren't we flesh pedestrians?
No, that's the whole thing.
I know, but I'm saying if you take the literal definition.
Yeah, I know, but...
Okay, they're in Oklahoma. They're actually originally based in southeastern Woodlands and was now Alabama and Mississippi. And now they're in Oklahoma and Mississippi. So not far enough, in my opinion. Yeah, I wish they were in California.
Yeah. But then you're from California, so it might travel with you.
Oh, okay. Freaking Oregon or something.
Okay, yeah, let's do that.
Okay. Another belief from the Choctaw is that everyone has an outside shadow known as the Shilambish, and an inside shadow, that's the Shilup. So the Shilup was essentially a ghost, that's the inside shadow, which after death, it goes to the land of ghosts.
Okay.
But the Shilambish, the outside shadow, it remains on Earth, wandering restlessly about, moaning and trying to scare people away from its from its perceived place. Yeah.
And here I am thinking the outside shadow is just like literally you're blocking the sunlight and you're...
Well, I feel like, I think that what they're saying is
like you have a sort of an internal soul and an external soul.
Yeah, like that's their external soul. But when you die, that external soul...
One leaves and one doesn't.
Yeah, it doesn't leave. Which would explain why, if you think about a shadow person, it would look like a black humanoid figure.
Yeah, yeah.
Because that's literally what shadows are.
Yeah.
It can also assume this Shilambish, I don't know how to pronounce it.
The outside one.
Yes. The form of a fox or an owl.
Huh.
And imitates the calls of those animals.
It's always an owl, apparently. But
have you heard a fox scream?
I was about to say it apparently does sound weirdly like a human scream.
It does.
Like, to a disconcerting degree. But...
I was walking the dog once at night, and I heard a fox screaming, but I wasn't 100% sure that it was a fox screaming. Mm. It almost sounded like an animal in pain. Mm. And I was like, am I going to go check to see if there's an animal in pain? Am I going to be eaten right now or killed by some monster? And I was like Googling. I was like, what do fox noises sound like? And I heard it, and it was the exact noise. Okay. And I was like, okay. Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah.
I'm gonna die today.
Yeah, because I was like, I want to save this animal if it's in danger, but I also don't want to get taken to another realm.
No, I'm not
if it's bait.
But I don't know. I feel like that would be a great podcast adventure, but that is a story for a different day. That's a novel, not
Lisa,
like my actual life.
Lisa on their way to find their podcast partner.
I'm reporting here from the Shadow Realm. Anyway, so that's the Choctaw mythology.
Would you try to find me if I got taken to the Shadow Realm?
Yes, I would, but my ADHD might not notice for a few days, so it might be too late. I'm sorry.
Damn it. It's okay. Maybe I can just impress them with all my knowledge of foxes. Okay. So, this is the part that freaks me out. I love it.
Okay.
So it assumes the form of an owl. It can assume the form of an owl or a fox, and it imitates the calls of those animals. Okay. But the Choctaw can differentiate between an animal and the Shilambish because when an animal calls out, it gets a response from other animals of its kind. When the Shilambish calls, there's no answer.
Damn. So even the owls are noticing.
Because they know. Because the animals know.
Yeah.
That's not
wild.
them.
Literally wild because it's animals. But
also, they stalk children as if they weren't creepy enough.
Yeah, because why not just add child murder? Okay.
But I mean, it's that thing of like you tell a child, stay away from the woods or this is gonna get you.
Yep.
But the reason that I love that so much is because I'm sure I've said this before, but things that imitate but aren't exactly. Yeah. That's one of my favorite types of horrors. Uncanny Valley type. Yes. I eat that up with a fork. I eat them up with my hands.
Yeah.
It looks like a deer, but it doesn't walk like a deer, sort of thing.
Hello, it's Editing Lisa. This turned into a giant tangent about deer in the wild and how they can be very creepy and how we freak ourselves out sometimes. And sometimes each other, but mostly ourselves. So if you want to hear the tangents about how I almost got run over by a deer on a run once, like 10 years ago, head over to Patreon next week, and the outtakes will be posted there. Okay, bye. Where were we?
We were talking about, we had just finished talking about the other, the Choctaw tribe legends.
Yeah.
So... thank you for letting me go on that tangent because I love talking about those kinds of horror. If I could figure out a way to make a podcast about that, I would, but I don't know how I would condense everything.
Everything about shadow people or
everything about like the Uncanny Valley.
Listen to Old Gods of Appalachia if you don't already. Yeah. So an excellent podcast in general, but it's a horror anthology podcast, and a lot of the time it's obviously set in Appalachia, but a lot of the things are like, it's a thing, but not quite the thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, very good, very well narrated.
That's
shout out to Old Gods of Appalachia.
Yeah, it's very good. Yeah. I'm gonna figure out how to do an Uncanny Valley episode. I'm just gonna have to take more time on it. Yeah. So, back to shadow people, which are also kind of Uncanny Valley, because it's like a human, but not a human.
Or like a cast shadow, but not quite a cast shadow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very Peter Pan-y.
Yeah.
So, anyway. Shadow people as we know it, as called shadow people, the first time they were discussed at length was on the radio show Coast to Coast AM.
Okay.
Which is a late-night radio talk show where people call in and talk about their supernatural experiences. And on April 12th, 2001, the then host and founder of Coast to Coast, Art Bell, interviewed a man purporting to be a Native American elder. Thunder Strikes, also known as Harley Swift Deer Reagan.
Okay.
I don't know.
Did they say what tribe or anything that they're from?
I didn't do too much research into him just because I don't know if I fully believe it. Yeah. But the point is, he was the first one to kind of talk about shadow people.
To give the name to the thing.
And I think he was just talking about like a figure entity, because I do know who gave the actual name. But during the show, the listeners were encouraged to submit drawings of shadow people that they had seen, and a large number of these drawings were immediately shared publicly on the website. I couldn't find offhand what tribe Harley Reagan was part of, only that he's in the Southwest.
Which is exceedingly vague.
Yeah. So, either way.
So
2001.
Coast to Coast.
Yeah. 2001, Coast to Coast calls in, start talking about shadow people. Have you heard of Coast to Coast? Mm-hmm. I have a history with it.
Oh.
Like a fun history.
Yeah. So I think I first heard it on Ghost Story Guys, or maybe Jim Harold's Campfire. Or possibly We Need to Talk About Ghosts. I don't know.
You listen to a lot of podcasts.
Yeah, I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to a lot of ghost podcasts. And I started listening to several ghost podcasts around the same time. So it's sort of a, like, which one? I don't know.
Amalgamation.
Also, shout out to Ghost Story Guys. I wrote in and I think they shouted us out again. But hooray!
My favorites. I'm gonna just shout out National Park After Dark.
Oh yeah,
that's a fun one because they go over different national parks.
Yeah.
And Two Girls, One Ghost. I just think they're funny.
Also, shout out since we're doing our shout out corner, I guess. Real life ghost stories is my other favorite. Yes. Yeah. Anyway. So
Coast to Coast.
Coast to Coast. Wait, what's your history with Coast to Coast?
I freaking love Coast to Coast. Okay.
I never actually listened to it. I only know that
I was listening to it literally right before you got here. So I never listened to Art Bell. I know that he was the founder and he was the original host. The host that I grew up with was George Norrie, which I think is the current host. Or maybe if not, I don't know. When I was a young child, no,
I was born
when I was just a lass.
Yeah.
When I was in middle school, my dad he still has, but that's when he bought it. He had land that right now he grows olive oils on it.
Ooh,
olive trees, sorry for olive oil. But when it was still in the beginning stages, I was in middle school, and he would drive over in the mornings, in the weekends, to work on the land, and sometimes he would take me with him. But we would get up at 4 a.m. And then drive a couple hours or an hour and a half, and because it was late night radio, we would listen
certain people are going to bed and certain people are waking up. So
we would listen to Coast, and I remember being in middle school, and I actually remember my very first episode of Coast to Coast.
What was it?
They were talking about shadow people.
Hey! And the circle has come full circle.
So now I get to make my own version.
Yay! Shout out at Coast to Coast.
Shout out at Coast to Coast AM. They have on Spotify, they have a podcast that's basically just highlights of the show. So if anybody wants to,
we'll link that in the show notes. Yeah.
My dad and I would always listen to it, and we would sometimes talk about do you believe what they saw? Do you believe what they saw?
Yeah. All right. So this person calls in April of 2001.
Yes. They talk about shadow people, and then apparently everybody else starts calling in and being like, we have seen shadow people. Yeah. We've seen shadow people. So that's October of that same year of 2001.
So 6 months later.
Mm-hmm. Heidi Hollis. She was an occupational therapist and author. She wrote a book. She published her first book on the topic of shadow people. So she is actually an expert on shadow people, and she later became a regular guest on Coast to Coast. And she's the one that coined the name shadow people.
Okay.
Yeah. Hollis describes shadow people as dark silhouettes with human shapes and profiles that flicker in and out of peripheral vision, and claims that people have even reported the figures attempting to jump on their chest and choke them. I got chills.
Right. That does sound like somebody's sleep paralysis.
That's okay. So here's another thing. According to David Weatherly, who is the author of the book Strange Intruders, sometimes shadow people attack witnesses. So this is a direct quote. Crushing pressure is applied when the shadow form pushed down on them, making it difficult to breathe. There are reports of physical sensations as the form strikes out with dark limbs, at times leaving marks that are discovered later. Others report that the shadow beings attempt to drag them from their beds, intending to pull them into some dark netherworld. End quote. So, would you help me if I went to Shadow Realm?
Yeah.
I would try to help you.
Yes, I would.
But once again, I also have ADHD, and it might take me a couple days.
It might take up to 2 weeks because we record every other week, and then if you're not texting me back about
I send you TikToks sometimes.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
Anyway,
if we start trying to coordinate podcast recordings and then not hearing back, whoopsie doodle, we have to go on a podcasting adventure. All right.
Oh my God. We're not promising anything. Nobody's getting taken. Okay. Anyway. But isn't that the freakiest thing?
It's so freaky. And so what's wild to me is that, two completely different continents, possibly as close as to the other side of the world as you can for one continent or the other. It's sort of and they have the same basic thing, right? Because Islam is what started in the Middle East, and then the Choctaw is American East Coast. Yeah. Good grief.
And that's just the two that I mentioned. I'm sure that there's like shadow beings in many other religions and belief systems.
Yeah. Good grief.
I know. It's like the concept of like the dragon.
Yeah.
Like there's always something there that they describe as a dragon. My dog is crying probably because she sees shadow people.
Yeah. It's the weight of the known universe.
So, from what we've gathered, shadow people, they're nocturnal and malevolent. Usually they're only seen out of the corner of your eye for just a second, but sometimes they appear for longer periods. Sometimes they are described as having glowing red eyes.
What the fuck?
Most reports on shadow people so no wonder they're malevolent. If something has glowing red eyes, I don't think that's your friend.
Yeah, that's true.
Most reports on shadow people are overwhelmingly negative and are accompanied by a feeling of dread. They can be children or adults, but are often described as male. Sometimes wearing long coats and hats. We're bringing it back to the Hat Man.
Yeah.
So this episode should be titled Shadow People and the Hat Man. Yeah. To be honest, because I spent a good portion. So,
wait, did we just explain Marissa from last time?
But he didn't have a hat. Did he?
They had the cloaky thing.
Well, actually, there's a little piece of evidence that might make that true. And I'll get into that. But first I'm going to talk about...
At Marissa, if you follow us on Instagram, shoot us a comment if this sounds
familiar to you.
Yeah.
Okay. So, the Hat Man is a famous urban legend who shares many characteristics with the aforementioned entities, but wears dark clothing, usually a trench coat over a three-piece suit, an old-style fedora hat, and is unusually tall. He's more solid than a shadow person, and he's also been known to talk to people who see him.
What does he say?
Well, different things. I'll get into that. Sometimes people don't see a face. Most of the time, people don't see a face. Sometimes they do see a face, but there's no consistency in his features and what he looks like. That's what I'm with Marissa. There was one report of someone who saw a skull. Marissa.
So, I wonder if Marissa's parents' house has just an infestation of hat people. Because it's two different stories of two different things,
yeah,
right?
But they both happen in the same house. Could it be the same entity that she saw twice?
But one didn't have a face and one did.
Maybe.
At Marissa, let us know.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, I was listening to Coast right now, and Heidi was saying, like, maybe Heidi Hollis was saying, like, I don't know if it's, like, different, like, there's multiple, or it's just, like, you know, he can be in multiple places at once.
Yeah.
So, according to Heidi Hollis, there's a difference between shadow people and the Hat Man. So, shadow people can shapeshift, and according to her, they were never really people. And the Hat Man doesn't change his shape. He's always wearing the long coat, and kind of dressed the same. And he is sometimes thought to be a demon or the devil himself.
Shit.
Yeah, Heidi is really into the idea that he is the devil. So
yeah, that does feel like a very Western Christian perspective on it, though.
It does.
Yeah. Or a very particular kind of worldview on it.
Yeah. So apparently what he does is... Well, first I'm going to read you this story.
Okay.
It's a really quick... Yeah. So she's had correspondences with witnesses of the Hat Man. And one story she heard was from a soldier stationed at a haunted base in Germany who saw the Hat Man in his mirror. The soldier asked who he was, and it responded, "I am Scratch," which Scratch is, for those who don't know, an old term used for the devil. Yeah.
Shit.
She also told the story of a man who had attempted to unalive himself, attempted suicide, and woke up in the hospital to find the Hat Man sitting at his bedside. And it said, "I almost had you," and disappeared. So,
good grief.
According to Heidi, who's like I said, the expert on Hatman. He had called himself the devil before, and now when he's talking to people, he calls himself Hatman.
Okay.
So it's almost like he's just taking on whatever name people would be familiar with of like a negative entity. So when you're saying Western, I'm like, yeah, but I think it also depends on who he's talking to.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. It's whichever term is in that person's consciousness.
Exactly.
Which makes me a little bit wonder how much it's produced by that. The Hatman phenomenon is produced by that person's consciousness. If they refer to this situation as the Hatman, and he says, hello, it's me, the Hatman.
Yeah.
As opposed to, hello, it's me, your dead plant, or something. Even though they've never had to plant a day in their life or something. Then I wonder, like, how much it's...
it's, like, projecting.
Yeah.
Also, how do you feel about the concept of, like, you know how something isn't real until people think it's real?
Oh, tulpas. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Where it's sort of like
they had a Supernatural episode on that.
Yeah. Where it's, you don't... the act of talking about it and thinking about it creates it into, like, physical existence. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's an interesting thing we could do an entire episode on as well. Yeah.
We should add that to our list.
Our ever-growing Google Doc.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But anyway, so that's creepy. Not only did he call himself Scratch, but he also said that he almost had this man who almost died. Yeah. So, oh, by the way, I looked up some of the books that Hollis has written. Yeah. And she wrote a book called The Hatman, The True Story of Evil Encounters.
Okay.
And if it's a compilation of Hatman stories, I kind of want to buy it and read some of them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if it's like a tulpa situation, I don't know if I should.
To my knowledge, tulpas aren't necessarily you name it and it follows you. Unless that's the thing that that particular tulpa is.
Oh, I see.
Like, if you, like, tulpa
I can bring the Hatman into existence, but doesn't mean he's going to bother me.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas, like, it could well be if you talk about an entity where if you name it, it follows you. It could tulpa it into existence. Anyway.
Also, according to Hollis, the Hatman tends to go towards those who have negative energy and, like, kind of more evil in their souls because it's easier to gravitate toward them to get them, if that makes sense. Which is similar to the Choctaw tribe. Yeah,
and it makes sense. It shows up on a military base, like and again, I'm not saying like every soldier ever is like the absolute worst evil thing, but like
I mean, a soldier's probably killed people before, and that has enough to like harden your heart.
Yeah, it's like if you're in the military and you're actually abroad, you've probably seen some shit, and you're probably still carrying some of that.
And the person who attempted suicide obviously has
a lot of negative things going on. Yeah.
Anyway. So that's my little thing on the Hatman.
All right.
Real quick, I'm going to bring it back to shadow people.
Yeah.
Because I want to talk about different theories as to what these shadow people could be. Different theories as to who or what these shadow people are could be an alien life form.
Okay.
That have come to visit us.
Yeah.
That seems to be kind of what Hollis is thinking. Some sort of alien life form because she always mentions aliens.
Yeah.
An interdimensional being that flickers in and out of our dimension.
Okay.
Which is why they kind of appear and reappear.
Okay.
Appear and disappear.
Wouldn't that be a subcategory of alien, though?
Yeah.
Or alien be subcategory? What is the subcategory of the other?
Yeah. I also kind of have like a separate theory that's kind of like a theory about ghosts, which is maybe there's multiple dimensions and we're crossing dimensions almost, and we get like an imprint of people from that dimension, but and you know what I mean?
But then, and that would also a little bit explain, okay, that's where whatever iteration of the soul you believe in, that's where your soul goes, and
that is a good point.
Yeah.
So yeah, it could be that sort of interdimensional being, whether that means alien or literally different dimension.
Yeah.
Another theory is that they are demonic entities attempting to manifest fully into the earthly plane.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is, a more religious theory.
Yeah.
And then there's also the theory that these are actually ghostly entities and that they were people.
Okay.
That these were the souls of the dead wandering between Earth and the afterlife, unable to cross over.
Okay.
Especially because prime places for shadow people are usually places where tragic deaths or murders have happened.
Huh.
And they are sometimes reported wandering outside or in cemeteries. Do you remember that story that I told in the first time we recorded an episode?
Where someone
stories?
Was like, your real spooky stories part
yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where you saw something. Or
I didn't see something. Somebody else saw it. So I'm just going to say it in case anyone didn't listen to that.
Yeah.
But one time when I was doing a tour, because I'm a ghost guide, I was in a cemetery, and I was in a portion of the cemetery that I had never told this story before. And so I was just doing my spiel, and it was like a school group, so it was a bunch of maybe like 8th graders. And I like did the story, and it was like fine. As I was leaving the cemetery, and we were walking back to wherever we were, back to, where we started. And this kid comes up to me, and he goes, "Oh, by the way, I saw something behind you when we were in the cemetery." Because kids like to tell me, like, their ghost stories. Yeah. And so sometimes, I had, like, one kid telling, "Oh, one time at my house this happened, and one time at my grandparents' house this happened." And then this kid goes, "I saw something behind you when we were in the cemetery." Damn. And I was like, "Oh, what do you mean?" And he was like, "It was like a person." And I was like, "Was there somebody walking?" Because, so there's, like, patrons and stuff. Yeah. And he's like, "No, it was like this shadowy black figure, and it was just standing behind you." Now, you'd think, oh, well, it's nighttime, maybe there's light casting. Yeah. But I could see my shadow while I was telling the story. Because the light was
the light was behind me, and your shadow's in front of you.
Exactly.
Oh my God!
So he saw an extra shadow. He saw a shadow person apparently in the cemetery.
Oh my God!
You want to know something even crazier? For those who have listened to Matthew's story, the place, like how that woman is always in the cemetery.
Yeah, they pointed to the same corner.
It was like that
oh my
section.
God.
It was that section of the cemetery.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question I think I might have asked Matthew. Was it near the Confederate grave?
No. I know.
Oh my God.
I know. Anyway. But we don't have any record. We don't have, like, actual records of things that happened in that church. Like, there's a whole section missing from, like, the Civil War.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Anyway, so
yeah, apparently I had a shadow person behind me at some point. Yeah. Thankfully, that was the only time I had heard that, and and I haven't done a ghost story in that section since.
Yeah.
So, according to Hollis, there's some methods for decreasing or eliminating incidents with shadow beings. Mm-hmm. So this is what she says. 1, learn to let go of your fear, because they manifest with fear. Mm-hmm. 2, stand your ground and deny them access to your person. So, don't let them infiltrate you or influence you. Focus on positive thoughts. Mm-hmm. Okay. If you need to use the name of Jesus to repel them or whatever entity you believe in, whatever sort of other power that gives you strength, then you can use that. She also says, keep a light on or envision light surrounding you. Yeah. And bless your room with bottled spring water. Cool. But either way,
me of very, very early on Ghost Story guys. I just remember them saying you can invoke this sacred breadstick if that's what you think will batter them away.
Because it's more about like your own will, and strength.
Yeah, and if the sacred breadstick works for you, then use the sacred breadstick. Yeah.
And now for the bummer part, scientific explanations.
Okay. We gotta include them.
So like you said before, sleep paralysis.
Yeah.
That's when an individual in the process of falling asleep or awakening finds themselves completely awake but unable to move or speak.
Yeah.
Sleep paralysis occurs when the muscular paralysis characteristic of REM sleep, which is we have to keep us from like acting out our dreams.
Yeah. So like if you're dreaming about like riding a rhino like a bulldozer, you're not actually trying to bulldoze through something.
Exactly. Yeah. Or if you're riding, like, doing martial arts in your dreams, you don't actually punch your partner or whoever's in the bed with you. I mean,
Devin would argue that I kick a lot anyway, but, you know.
Well, imagine if you didn't have the REM function thing.
Anyway.
So that happens when that muscular paralysis occurs during a waking state.
Yeah.
So usually when you're waking up or when you're falling asleep.
Yeah. Tune back to Bryce's story because he apparently experiences it occasionally. So
the person often feels a weight on their chest or body and a sense of suffocation, which could explain the how they said dread dread, and also like how they said sometimes they would jump on them.
Oh yeah,
and like try to choke them. Or drag them.
Yeah.
Frequently, people with sleep paralysis will see a shadowy or indistinct shape watching or approaching them. So, shadow people. Sleep paralysis can last for minutes or seconds until the sleeper is suddenly released from that paralysis.
Okay.
So, that's, I think, a very strong explanation. Although some people claim that they were like fully like awake. They were like walking around their house and they turned the corner and it was right there.
Yeah, because like if we were thinking about Marissa's stuff, like she was saying she was fully awake both of her times. Like she hadn't gone to bed yet.
She was working on like actively working on things.
Like studying something and
So another explanation is that someone experiencing heightened emotion, like walking alone at night, might accidentally perceive a patch of shadow as like a threat or a person. Yeah. Just because of like that instinct of always making sure that you're safe and anything could be a predator. Yeah. And sleep deprivation can also be.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, if it's finals week, that does a little bit make sense.
But, in which case Marissa's story could be sleep deprivation. But honestly, it's so detailed that I legitimately believe that she saw what she saw.
Yeah. Because again, with the light in the eyeballs thing.
That's
anyway. Anyway, if Marissa ever invites me to her parents' house, I will probably say no. Not that we know each other like that yet, but no offense to Marissa's parents. But
so apparently, people who meth addicts sometimes see shadowy figures after prolonged periods without sleep. And also I think there's something in meth that makes it so that they see hallucinations of shadow figures. So that's interesting. And similarly, people commonly report shadow people when they're under the effects of certain medications which contain deliriants, like Benadryl, which is the meme, right? Line.
Yeah.
You see the Hat Man when you take the Benadryl.
I haven't had to take Benadryl in quite a while, so...
Well, it's because the deliriants, they're a subclass of hallucinogens. So... It could be that when you take certain drugs, you're more likely to hallucinate.
Yeah.
Or is it that it's just unlocking the potential? Who knows? And also, of course, there are people with schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. They might also see hallucinations, which are often described as shadowy figures in their peripheral. If somebody sees something, but none of those apply, maybe there is something. Those are the explanations that I could find. But what do you think?
I think the universe is vast, and it could well be that for various groups of people fit one or the other better.
Yeah.
I'm loosely reminded of an episode of Astonishing Legends, which is also a really great podcast. They did an episode that was a follow-up about, I think it was Annalise Michel, which was like that German potential possession case.
I remember her.
And with someone who had this very specific medical condition. There was a theory that Annalise Michel had this also a specific kind of health condition where it's not quite full-blown psychosis or schizophrenia where you're fully hallucinating something, but it's the way this interviewee later described it, it's sort of a she sees these like weird faces and weird hands or weird things, but she also is not convinced that those are real. Like, she knows that they're not real, but also her eyeballs are registering that that's right there. Which is really, really weird.
Is it like the medication that she's taking, or is it...
No, the medication made it go away. Like the thyroid medication that they eventually put her on.
That's so weird how one thing in your body malfunctioning could affect your entire perception.
Yeah. At Editing Lisa, if I can find the old Astonishing Legends episode, link it and insert here what the actual name of the health condition is. Editing Lisa here. The episode of Astonishing Legends is called Sarah and the Spider Woman, and the health condition is called Graves' disease. I will link the episode in the description as well. Okay, bye. Okay. But so I think it's any and all of the above.
Yeah.
That said, I think we can't rule out the real statistical anomaly medical situations.
Yeah.
But I
just think it's interesting that multiple legends and multiple people
have experienced that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, I think it's one of those where, okay, to a certain point, this is kind of part of the human experience of like, okay, there's something in the dark and we don't know what it is, and different cultures have different words and for things like that. But even then, if you live in a different region, what you might think is in the dark and what the nature of the dark is can vary quite a bit.
Yeah.
Wendigo egg are specific to the way far north because because like
it's cold.
It's cold and lonely, and that's a real risk. Whereas a lot further down, or a lot further south, the risk of starvation is
winter.
Being alone in the dark is a lot different. Yeah. Anyway.
So that's everything I have about shadow people.
All right. So, dear listeners, what do you think shadow people are? Let us know. We'll put up a poll.
Do you believe in the Hat Man, or do you think he's a Benadryl-induced nightmare?
Let us know in the poll in the comments. If you want to follow us on Instagram, we're at Dreary Midnight Pod. If you want to support the show, patreon.com/Dreary Midnight, or share, like, review, especially a review with words helps us with the algorithm.
Just type out the words Lisa and Celeste are awesome in your review.
Leave us a sparkling water review. We like...
Oh yeah, tell us the different types of sparkling water that you enjoy. I'm a LaCroix fan.
I like whatever is a deal on Aldi. But with all that said, don't engage with anyone says, hello, it's me, the Hat Man, and
try to keep a positive mind.
Yeah, just in life, it'll help you a little bit. Like, we know you can't do it all the time. Life circumstances happen where that cannot be sustained or maintained. Yeah. But
you're alive and you're here.
You're alive and you're here, and yourself to a friend if you can.
Exactly.
And with all that said, safe travels home on this dreary midnight. Good night.
Good night.